Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with Moor Insights Strategy, and I am here with my amazing co-host who is traveling, but he is still potting, Daniel Newman, founder, CEO, president, chief wahoo of Futurum Research. Daniel, how you doing?
I'm good, buddy. I'm in the home of Tom Brady. I'm in the home of the could-be Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning. I am in Florida. Down here for, something not really vacation, but not really work. And by the way, for everybody out there that is listening, the only work I'm doing today is this pod because we love our community so much that there's tech stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about it even as we head into the 4th of July.
I know. I have a feeling that as we move into normalcy here with work, our backgrounds are going to be pretty much like your background. So
sometimes you got to do it at the hotel, man. These drapes, these are a stellar background. It's been really a luxury to be home, to be able to do so much of this stuff in our office where our setups are perfect and primed, and you got 8 monitors. And this morning as I'm setting this thing up, I'm thinking, oh crud, I can't even look at my notes. I'm gonna have to actually know what I'm talking about. Kidding. But normally nowadays we get to have, you get your notes, you get to have everything in front of you, and we don't. So, I mean, this is like, hey, we're going to test our will and our knowledge here. But big week. I mean, for a week that wasn't really typically a big week with the 4th of July, there's a lot going on. And by the way, MWC went on this week, kind of, sort of.
Yes, it is. There was a lot of activity out there. But you know what? Let's dive right in to the first topic, Daniel. And just as a reminder, this show is for informational and educational purposes only. We are going to talk about public companies because, there's a lot of capitalization wrapped up in them and people want to hear about those. But don't take anything that we say for investment advice. As Daniel said, we've got a big show. We've got Microsoft, Google, Intel, Qualcomm, Marvell, Lattice, and Poly that we're going to be talking about. So, Daniel, let's jump right in with the first topic. You may or may not have known this, but Google and Microsoft had a legal truce for 6 years, essentially I won't sue you and you won't sue me. And that recently ended.
Yeah, this is a big topic, Pat. It was one that I think caught a lot of people by surprise when the announcement came out that a truce had ended, because frankly, there hasn't been a lot of talk about the fact that this truce existed. Now, this initially took place early in the tenures of both Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google, and Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft. Over the last several years, both companies have seen a lot of growth, a lot of momentum. But here's what everyone needs to know. You can read the news. And by the way, 6.5, we try to give a little news, a lot of analysis. The analysis on this one is big. We're coming off of a week where 5 new antitrust bills were introduced into the House. We're looking at platforms. We're looking at breaking up the way companies favor their own products. And we're looking at essentially Google, Amazon, Apple, and Facebook under the knife. And to some extent, Microsoft sort of sitting on the outside looking in. But Microsoft is no stranger to massive regulatory battles. Around the turn of the millennium, the company spent a number of years under intense scrutiny, which forced it to completely rethink its business model and to be prepared for moments like this. Long and short, early on in this particular this particular engagement, that legal agreement between the two companies, they decided to focus more on positivity. Now, this comes out after Microsoft had their Scroogled campaigns and lobbying going on. And in short, Pat, here's kind of what I think people should really think about. One, the advertising space, Google just came out and basically announced they're going to extend cookies into the longer term future. Well, Microsoft just came out with Windows 11, its Edge browser, which focuses on more privacy. This is a key moment for the company to come out with a stronger privacy stance, and that potentially means they're going to have to be somewhat critical of what's going on at Google. Another thing that immediately came to my attention is Microsoft recently announced its intention to make side loading on its devices easier. Now, they're not in the mobile OS space yet, but hold your horses. With Windows 11, ARM support got a lot bigger. You're already seeing them come down market with smaller profile devices like the Duo. And with all this ARM support on Windows and the fact that platforms are being challenged in this new antitrust era, is Microsoft potentially primed to come into this space and challenge in the mobile OS space again? We've seen it come, we've seen it go. It hasn't worked yet, but that wasn't really under a Satya Nadella-led Microsoft, which has a ton of momentum. And here are just a couple of things, but the last thing I'll say, and Pat, I'll try to leave a couple of thoughts for you to be able to jump in here, is in this space in particular, right? Google and Microsoft are challenging each other everywhere. And by the way, the optics of having some sort of alignment to not challenge each other in court just isn't good optics right now, not in the middle of antitrust and regulatory over big tech. They're challenging each other in workspace, productivity, collaboration, cloud, advertising, social. These two companies are neck and neck. And frankly, this is probably the one really interesting and odd anomaly I said is in some ways, the two companies challenging each other is good for the regulatory because showing competition, showing that there is no collusion or alliance of any type between these companies to not challenge each other means that's just one more big competitor in the space. And when you're trying to pass antitrust law, when you have 4 and 5 big companies all competing in, for instance, cloud, is it really non-competitive? And I would argue it is not. Pat?
Yeah, so you left a little bit for me, and I appreciate that. But I think this has a lot to do with showing that these big companies can be competitive against each other. And I know you had mentioned this, but I'll put an exclamation point on that, right? When you have either public deals or secret deals with these large companies agreeing to do or not to do, I think the courts might construe that as very monopolistic. Hey, you take this market, I'll take that market, right? We'll dominate everybody else and everything's okay. The other thing, while this isn't Microsoft and Google, there's Microsoft and Apple. Microsoft has been very, really there, and I did a lot of press interviews this week on that very topic, which was Apple, Microsoft really turning the screws down on Apple, and whether it's Apple's 30% store tariff versus Microsoft's 0 to 15% tariff, I think it's fascinating. Apple is impinging on the PC market with the new M1 chips, and I'm waiting for them to make their price reduction to go from like an OPP to around $1,000 to maybe $799, where they could really damage the Microsoft ecosystem. So I'm with you. More competition is better. Let's move to the next topic, Daniel. Intel was in the news recently, and not for what I think maybe they wanted to be in the news for. So Sapphire Rapids had a push, and also there was a reorg, particularly across DCG. And I don't know if they're combined, but we just decided to put them in at the same time. So I think in a way, the Sapphire Rapids push was a little bit, the reaction, I was pretty surprised. I mean, Wall Street, what are they down, like 5 points, Daniel, since that was announced? So Intel had committed to shipping Sapphire Rapids by the end of 2021, and then to have volume in the first half. Intel is still going to hit volume in the first half, albeit in the second quarter, but they really had to do it, I think, because a new leader came in at DCG. And listen, this is my speculation and nothing that I got from Intel, but I think Sandra Rivera came in to run DCG. She saw the schedule, she saw what the outbound message was, and said, listen, this is the new Intel, and our new CEO has made some commitments on how we communicate, and we're more open. And one thing led to another, and they gave more details. So now, was that connected to the reorg that was last week? I have no idea, but it is incredibly ironic And essentially, what happened? And listen, I like Naveen Shenoy a lot. Got to know him a lot better over the last couple of years. He is exiting stage left, and we've got new leadership coming in with Sandra Rivera. I've gotten to know her really well when she was running the networking group and building that, and she spent the last couple of years running HR. Additionally, networking and IoT were pulled together, which to me there's absolute synergy there, and those are really the highlights. And on the reorg, listen, new CEO Pat Gelsinger came in and said, "Hey, we're going to bring technologists to the top," and Sandra Rivera has a double E, and Naveen didn't. That could very well be the reason for this. And also, I mean, Daniel, how many times have we seen a new CEO comes in, 100% of the time they make changes? And so here we are. So people shouldn't over-index on the reorg like, oh, they're going to be a complete failure. I mean, my gosh, DCG still has 90% market share of general purpose servers and is growing in storage and growing in networking and carrier. And we're always up in the right. But, we can't underplay the commitment that Pat Gelsinger made to schedules and the commitment that he made to be more open. So we have what we have, Daniel.
Yeah, absolutely, Pat. A couple things I wanted to notate too. This slip into the first half of 2022, while it was sort of textbook Intel and what's happened with Intel over the last few years, to your point, the more transparent, open, upfront, and early admittance of this was a solid move to show this is a new Pat Gelsinger-led Intel, and it's not going to be mistake-free, not possible, but it's going to be proactive in communications. The second thing is the company did take the chance to make this update not just about being late, but also being better. And that kind of got a little bit lost, but there was some pretty significant updates. And I pointed to these in some of my hot takes this week. There was new support for, advanced matrix extensions, which is important to the DL Boost technology, which is important to the ML strategy of Intel and their general purpose CPUs. There were enhancements to its data streaming architecture. I think it made this the first Intel chip that is going to include DSA. And then the second thing is in upcoming Sapphire Rapids, they did announce or officially memorialize that they're going to feature up to 64 gigs of HBM2. So I made enhancements on the memory or confirmed some of the capabilities. And while the point is all these things were really part of the plan from the get-go, and from talking to the team about this delay, they're taking their time and making really what is a modest extension to the go-to-market to try to make sure that these enhancements that have been committed in Sapphire Rapids are truly delivered. Because I think waiting a quarter or a month, because actually I think it was at like Supercomputing or Computex, they'd already sort of alluded to this thing being delayed into the beginning of 22. So this isn't even really the first time they said it. It's just the first time they've officially said it, Pat. And I guess to that point, getting it right, I still believe at this point is going to be more important than getting it fast. AMD, ARM, very strong competition right now. But let's just say, Pat, that they're going to be better served to get it right. And by the way, with Ice Lake being a little bit late to market too, this actually kind of one of the convenient benefits is giving a little bit more time gap between those two launches for customers to settle in on these new generations. So definitely imperfect, not the ideal situation, but I do believe the company is doing a pretty good job of making the best of this difficult moment.
Yeah, those are really good adders, Daniel. And I actually talked to an OEM that was actually thankful, which they're like, thankful? They're thankful because it'll be Intel doing the incremental testing for 3 months as opposed to them finding bugs and submitting to Intel. So they were thankful that Intel is not going to push, their problems down the line to them. Now, another OEM's like, we're ready, let's go, right? And we're okay with this. Our customers aren't going to use these two instructions, which, by the way, I had originally mistakenly thought that it was just these two instructions that were causing the issue. It's not. Intel with Sapphire Rapids, it's a brand new platform and it's a brand new chip, right? And anytime you introduce a new memory architecture, a new memory standard with DDR5, which they're leading in, problems always happen 100% of the time. When I was at AMD, I mean, this was some of the hardest part to get. Not only, you can get one vendor going on memory, but getting multiple vendors going on new memory is freaking tough, because you're going back and forth with the memory vendors. And Intel didn't tell me this, but I think it's memory. I think it's a DDR5 thing that they're trying to work out. But let's go to the next topic, Daniel. Also in chip stonkery, new Qualcomm CEO Cristiano Amon took the scepter yesterday. He's been CEO-elect for a while. He's been president of Qualcomm for a long, long while. We just had him at the 6.5 Summit. Daniel, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, this, Pat, is probably one of our quicker hit topics, but it was something that we've been long awaiting to be memorialized. Steve Monkoff did a very good job, helped Qualcomm navigate some really murky waters for a number of years in regulatory, a long and difficult lawsuit with Apple, ongoing and continuous challenges to its licensing model, dealing with the FTC. But over the last year and a half, the company has had some pretty good results in a number of these legal cases. Steve felt that it was the right time, as you suggested, to hand over the scepter. Cristiano, from the QCT and on the technology and product side, has really been actively the face of the company for countless years, whether that's been Snapdragon Summit for the press, whether that's been Mobile World Congress. Cristiano was the person we've been seeing oftentimes in the press and the interviews in the media. He's very active, very product driven. I think the moment in time to turn directionally from the company that's kind of constantly navigating these legal challenges to a company that's building, innovating, and really focusing on that more is the reason. And of course, I have to imagine Steve was he did a great job. You saw, I think the share price almost tripled at its peak, coming out of some very scary moments during its Apple litigation. The company's in a very good position. Has the right alignments. Qualcomm's Snapdragon it finds itself in most of the world's premium devices, and they've dealt with the and they're also, by the way, innovating in all kinds of new adjacencies, whether that's been RF front end, whether that's been automotive, IoT, and Cristiano's really been a key advocate for that. So, Pat, like I said, I will make this one pretty quick. I'm really interested. I'm first of all, congratulations, Cristiano. It's been great. We've had you here on the cast a few times. We had you at our summit. We expect and hope that you will come back and you will continue to talk to us now that you're officially memorialized as CEO. We'll be even more excited to have you here. But I'm interested in seeing the direction of the company. I'm interested in seeing what sort of different feel the company gives off in the press and the media with its upcoming announcements. But I expect a successful tenure from someone who's been very well primed to take this role.
Yeah, a couple things to keep in mind, I think, here are that Cristiano was part of the go forward strategy and the expansion. So I'm not expecting like these, I'm the new CEO and we're going to get into making water bottles, right? Or something dramatically different, right? Cristiano was the guy on stage talking about the expansion into automotive, talking ORAN and the edge, AI inference at the data center and at the edge, and a lot of the RF portions of the business, where Qualcomm is now the number one smartphone RF vendor, which is like, oh my gosh, that happened quickly. Not to mention, their $1 billion a quarter IoT business. That, it's funny when you look at companies like Synaptics and some pure plays in there, larger than many of those companies. So I'm looking forward to it. He does have an absolutely different style, and I'm always fascinated to see how companies react to it. Right? I think there will be some people who will leave that don't like that style, and it will attract other people that absolutely love that style. Cristiano, I think of something that would characterize him after getting to know him so well. It's like he's a pirate, right? I mean, he is literally at the helm. I love the word you use because he is literally on the pirate ship, and I am super excited to see some of the incremental moves that he's going to make. He's super passionate about the PC space as well. And you know what? We need more competition in the PC space, right? AMD plus Intel is 99.9% market share, and we need some changes there because most healthy markets have 3 people in there. So, anyways, great comments. Let's go to the next topic, Daniel. Lattice introduced new FPGAs for the edge. Lattice is the #1 unit market share leader for FPGAs. And as we know, heterogeneous computing is getting super sexy. It's just not all about CPUs anymore. And we are moving to CPUs, GPUs, FPGAs, and ASICs. But let's dive in here. With that said, they brought out a new version, a pro version, that is for their general purpose. And what general purpose essentially means is they have some more fixed for purpose FPGAs with some of their software kits. But this is really a double click into that next generation here. And what I especially appreciated about this was drilling into and Jim and Esam providing a lot more detail on the competition. And essentially what they showed is that versus the Xilinx Arctic 7 and the Intel Cyclone V5 GT, the NX Pro or the Pro-NX was 2x more bandwidth, 4x lower power on 5 gig networking, and then up to 4x lower power on 10 gigabit networking. And which you never see is we actually had a demo of the power savings at all. And then finally, to adding more insult to injury, Lattice showed that the CertusPro-NX, basically a fact, which was at 65% more memory, which improves capability, programmability, and less reason to go to real memory. So I know that's a mouthful, but I think net Lattice is doing what it can to exemplify their ownership of the lowest power segment. And I think it's bodes well. And although this isn't their mid-range product that we're all looking forward to, I think that this is a good sign.
Yeah, I think I can just touch quickly here. The leadership of this company is very focused, very disciplined, understands its market, understands how to grow, isn't trying to get over its skis, and it's going to be rewarded for that as the demand for silicon continues. It is, whether it's the sidecar to these bigger general purpose CPUs that we spend a lot of time talking about, or some of these customized, these programmable assets that are required in spaces like automotive and 5G, data center, that first chip that gets hit when you boot up that server, Lattice may just be there. And so I'm looking at the way this company continues to develop. It's targeting a $6 billion TAM. It's not chasing the $300 billion. And the market needs companies like this, disciplined, focused, executing. That's what it's showing. That's just another piece of the puzzle that's being solved by this launch. So congratulations. And yeah, let's just keep rolling forward here.
Yeah, final thing I liked about this, I'll add on, Esam got up and showed customers. And very rarely do you get any insight into some of these chip companies' customers. But some of the ones that impressed me the most, because I didn't know they were customers, were Amazon, Facebook, Google, and Microsoft and Samsung. Like that's pretty much a who's who of that, and they showed 20 other customers on there. But appreciate all the information there. Let's move to the next topic. So Marvell launched a new DPU based on Octeon 10 and threw a little 5 nanometer action in there.
A little, Pat. I mean, come on. That is the news. I mean, you know, the company basically invented the DPU. You know, there might be some argument here. Wasn't necessarily the fastest to get the marketing nomenclature correctly, but in terms of doing it, Matt Murphy, another great part of our 6.5 Summit this year, CEO there, has turned this company around. We talked about that here. In fact, watch the session. We really talk about it there. But the DPU space, and essentially for those not totally familiar, it's about building silicon to offload certain work that the general purpose CPUs have been doing that isn't most efficient for them to do. So you're offloading things like networking and storage. And Marvell has been really leading in this space. So the Octeon 10, is basically all about accelerating, helping process the whole spectrum, security, networking, storage workloads. And really the company's focus here is 5G, cloud, carrier, and the data center, which are big booming businesses, and the ability to shift off, these workloads more efficiently. So Pat, as you said, 5 nanometer here, well, listen, this is huge. The goal of this next, of the Octeon 10 is 3 times performance, 50% lower power consumption, and it's taking advantage of the ARM Neoverse N2 5 nanometer process. And Pat, I believe it's the first DPU to do this. It's got, hardware acceleration. It's got integrated terabit switch, vector packet processing accelerators. So, I mean, this thing is essentially loaded to the gills with features and function. And as I see it, and I'll say it, Pat, the thing that gets me excited is Marvell continues to push the envelope here. They're pushing the envelope. They're challenging, I'll give Jensen Huang, another guest of our event, by the way. Everybody came to the summit, Pat. A lot of credit for nailing the architecture of the DPU, but I want to also give Marvell a lot of credit for actually building these products, getting them into market, and being side by side with these big silicon makers, these cloud providers, 5G, automotive, building what is necessary to make our CPUs more efficient, and just understanding exactly, another company that, by the way, understands exactly where they belong, is building out products and services to win there. And that's why I was so excited. I was so excited, in fact, Pat, that I actually gave Marvell a quote in their press release this week about the Octeon 10 launch, because, and I don't just give those away. I've got to be really excited. And I really think the company is nailing it in this DPU space.
Yeah, all good analysis, Daniel. And I guess the only thing I'll add is that just kind of to reinforce the architecture of the data center is disaggregating, right? There was a day that server storage, networking, and security was all kind of packed into one place. And in order to get the scale-up capabilities and to be able to more easily jockey between different types of applications requires disaggregation. And, we see it in storage, right? SAN, intelligent SAN, and NASes that have acceleration, like Aqua on AWS. The other part is networking, and you're 100% accurate that Marvell created the DPU as an appliance, and then I think AWS perfected it. But if you're not AWS and haven't spent 10 years and acquired a company like Annapurna to do increasing offloads, who are you going to turn to? You're going to turn to Marvell in the cloud. If the enterprise, not to be confused with NVIDIA, who's really going after the enterprise GPU market, but they continue to move forward. One of the things, like you said, that didn't get enough credit was this is using TSMC's 5 nanometer process, and also ARM's latest server chip. which you could run general purpose on that from a spec standpoint. Right now, at least on paper, haven't seen this yet, is higher spec int than any chip from Intel or AMD. Now, this is not supposed to do general purpose computing. I understand that because it's a DPU, but way to put a massive compute engine on the edge. And I'm looking forward to, hey, beyond maybe security, DNS or things like that, what else could they do here? Well, I mean, they did add their own unique machine learning engine, which is pretty cool. But anyways, great stuff, great chip analysis here. Gotta be love chips.
Well, let's move. I mean, you can't have SAS without chips.
You can't. Chips and SAS, the two bookends that make the world go around.
Well, you really can't have anything without chips in the tech space. Everything runs on a chip. And, I think there's a lot of people who love tech that do not appreciate the fact, whether it's your gaming console, your mobile device, your laptop, the server that runs your business's applications. I mean, look, Pat, we don't geek out on chips because, it's just a popular topic. We geek out on chips because as chips become more capable and as infrastructure becomes more, elastic with what semiconductors are doing, the stuff we get to do is cooler. Speaking of the stuff we get to do that's cooler, you love to look at cameras. So I'm not the host, but I just took over that turn. Normally I just let you go, and I just couldn't help myself. So
it's okay. No, let's move to Poly. So Poly, as you know, has been pretty much crushing it on its new generation of products that are more for a hybrid work. And Daniel, you and I have talked about it many times. The thing that we think the industry is missing when we go to hybrid is how do you make everybody equal, right? It was one thing when we were all remote, where if you're a VP or the wood chopper, junior wood chopper, I was called that, by the way, 30 years ago, you got the same size block, and you could mute, everybody can mute or unmute themselves. Well, what happens when we have hybrid, where you have people who are remote, and then you have the people at headquarters, let's call it the VP at headquarters, and then the people who are sucking up to the VP at headquarters sitting right next to that person. That means we no longer have equality. So what Poly did is they brought out a camera called the E70. I haven't reviewed it yet, so this is just more kind of editorial about it. But it has two 4K cameras to scan the entire room to be able to zoom in on the person who's talking. But in my opinion, and more importantly, it can segment each person's face that's in the big room to give that look that everybody had when we were remote. And that, to me, truly is a breakthrough, and is going to help to have a softer landing for people when they get back into the office. And the other thing that's crazy, too, is this thing is only as wide as a 13-inch notebook. So it's about 12.6 inches wide. So it's not this massive hulking beast out there. So I haven't tried one yet, but hats off to Poly for bringing out what I consider the next generation of hybrid work collaboration devices.
Yeah, Pat, look, we have a completely different future of work. We have almost the entire industry of tech and a number of different industries that are all trying to find the balance after a year to a year and a half of people in knowledge positions working remotely, and the technology that's going to enable high quality interactions when you have at least that one person. I think there was a stat like almost 90% of meetings is going to have one person at least that will not be in the room. And let's face it, it's going to be a lot more than that. And so, it used to be enough just to have a laptop. And there are great companies, whether that's Dell and HP, building really specific laptops to address these meetings. But when you want a little bit more, when you want a little more quality, when you want a little bit better voice, when you're trying to do a podcast or a broadcast, or you really want to make sure your meetings have optimum video, optimum immersion, Poly is really one of the companies that I've been very fond of for what they're trying to build. And what I like most, by the way, is that they understand the need to be agnostic as it comes to which platform. Zoom, Microsoft, Cisco, 8x8, Ring Central. I don't know. Did I miss anybody? But the point is whatever you're using, that hardware will be compatible and it will be easier to use. And Pat, you and I do dozens of pods and recordings and webcasts and webinars on the weekly. And we also do 3-4 times that in terms of video briefings. Quality matters. Quality matters. And I'll just leave it on this thought. For a long time, people never really appreciated audio, for instance. But when you go to a movie theater, you think it's the size of the screen. It's never been about the size of the screen. It was always about the amazing immersive THX Dolby surround with the screen. And the point is anybody that's put a huge 70, 80, 100-inch plasma in their family room and doesn't have a great sound system understands why that is the case. Not to, take a consumer moment and make it an enterprise moment, Pat, but these peripherals matter. And in the future of work with hybrid and remote, better tech means a better experience.
By the way, great adders in there. And by the way, just for the sake of balance, one thing I'm not too certain about is its ability to do long range audio. That's the one thing that I'll be looking into. I'm pretty certain they're going to nail the segmentation of the audience in the room, because they've been working on these algorithms for years. But when you get a room up to, and let me make sure I get this right, when you get a room up to 28 feet out there, I mean, that acoustic fencing that goes into that and doing it for multiple people is going to be really hard. And I never saw any external microphones that might be helping with, but again, super exciting. By the way, check it out. It looks so freaking cool. If nothing else, check it out. But Daniel, we are at time here, buddy. Man, Daniel, do you want to make an announcement of where you will be living just soon again?
I feel like I announced this already. I feel like I announced it.
We're 2 weeks away from Splashdown.
Yeah, well, the Newman family will be departing from Naperville, Illinois in just over 2 weeks to head to warm, sunny pastures of the Silicon Hills of Austin, Texas. Excited to establish some new roots down in Texas, and appreciate everybody that's going to be supportive as I migrate my equipment. But I will not stop podding. But you might see a different background. You might see a different background than this terrible, ugly background that we have here. But yeah, excited for all the support. Excited to have this move behind us. Moving is never easy, but it will be great to be there in Austin, Pat. It'll be great to be in the same city as you. I think this is where the future of tech is going to live. I know. And some people in California may not agree, but I think we can have that debate.
I don't know. We've got, Elon Musk moved here, 5 or 6 VC leaders. I can't wait till you get here. We're gonna have so much fun. I'm gonna probably get in trouble with Paula, but that's
trouble.
That's okay. Yeah,
trouble free.
As long as you keep me out of trouble, we'll do great. So everybody, I just want to thank you for tuning in for another episode. If you liked what you heard, press that subscribe button. If you don't like what you heard, hit up Daniel on Twitter at Daniel Newman UV and complain to him. Now, seriously, folks, we love every one of you that tunes in, and I'm always shocked at how many people watch our episodes and hang in there. And with that, have a great July 4th if you're in the United States. And if you're in the UK, I'm sorry, you don't have to celebrate that at all. You can make fun of us.
They get days that we don't. We get days that they do. Man, let's let these people go. Let's let me go. I got to get out of here, buddy. But it was a great show.
All right.
Great seeing you.
Everybody, great seeing everybody. Have a great weekend.